actually everything we are about to tell you is available on a website that we put together to make this easier. So this is the college's main page. If you go up here to library, and you probably just heard my southern accent come through there, library. Down here under services, there's this educational technology support. This is essentially a LibGuide that has all of our sort of classroom academic technology stuff. Okay, and there's an index on this side because it's gotten massive and out of control. But one of the things under blended learning is multimedia web projects. So this is all kinds of stuff about designing the assignment, the software that you might use, hardware, and then some of the stuff that Arlene and Chris are going to talk to you about. There's actually equipment that students can borrow if they're doing some of this stuff that we have information about. Gotcha.
There you go. And then video viewing, editing.
Ah, yes. This is also a list of all of the video editing and viewing software, hardware, things like that are available as well. So let me go here. So this document is actually this document. So if you lose it, come back here. And essentially we put together, and I say we, it was me and Arlene and Chris, this document, I want to say sometime maybe last year before a similar workshop similar to this. And we kind of put together sort of the, maybe in reverse, best practices gleaned from things that faculty had told us about, had done, that did and did not work. Okay, so this is sort of things to think about when you're designing an assignment. And in a nutshell, they are, and they're up here too, clearly defined goals. So I talk about in the document, there's kind of two things here. One is sort of your learning goals, what you want the students to get out of it, which can help you to design the assignment. But then also what the project goal is. And you might do this yourself, you might have your students do it, you might kind of feed off of one another, but it's really important when students are doing something like this that they know what it is the end result is going to be or should be, or what the primary purpose of this thing that they're creating is. Because you can get really caught up in like making music and putting title screens in or choosing your font for the website, and kind of lose sight of what's important. So it's really good to have that stated up front. The other thing that has proven very important for success is some kind of assessment rubric. So your students might have had some video editing or web design work. They might not have experience, but they certainly won't know what sort of, they've been taught to write papers, and that's sort of the scholarly discourse that they're used to. And so translating that into a multimedia world is really hard, I think, for them and for us. So, and there have been a lot of great people thinking about this. So down here, kind of at the bottom, I've got some links to different rubrics that people have created for different things. There's a rubric creation wizard that may be too simplistic, but is also kind of interesting. For different types of things, videos, podcasts, stuff like that. So these are maybe some jumping off points for you if you're like totally, how in the world am I going to assess something like this? Another thing, teamwork. Even though I think people write papers independently and things like that, most video production or web design is actually a team effort. And the faculty and students we've talked to have said it's really nice to have someone to be able to troubleshoot with or bounce ideas off of or something like that. So another thing that teamwork can help with is if everybody needs to use one of these devices, and you have a big class, there may not be enough, and so that can help. Also, if everybody has to record on campus or interview someone, right, then rather than having 30 people come to this person, they might have only 6 or something. So something to think about. Short is maybe, in fact, short should probably be number 1. Whatever you're having students design, it takes a lot of work to do it. So think short. We used to say, 3 minutes for a video. Yeah, is
It seems limiting, but it's not, because things that are longer than that tend to really get overwhelming.
right.
Plus they're boring.
Plus they're boring.
Plus you'll have to watch these lengthy videos.
Right.
Yeah.
And honestly, depending on what you want students to do with them, if you want them, for instance, to upload to Moodle, you can get into file size limits as well. So you want to be mindful of that, especially with video projects.
The shorter it is, the smaller it is. Another thing is to help students with the process. So this is going to take a while, and if students have never done this before, it's going to be the kind of thing where you don't want to start working on this, 2 days before it's due. So really setting sort of a milestone. And I think I have suggested milestones in here, like a project design abstract, a storyboard or mock-up of some kind, a script, and things like that that you can do at different sort of stages. So I think typically if you look around at different assignments that people have that are out there, there's usually some sort of like proposal, there's some sort of halfway point where you've got the equivalent of maybe like a abstract or a table of contents or something like that, an outline for a paper, and then there's like a rough draft version.
If you're going for either a podcast or video, requiring students to provide some kind of little shooting script, basically, is often a good intermediate step, so that they really thought about their content before they, start recording anything.
And my interns who were doing little video tutorials over the summer occasionally decided to dispense with that step. And I've done this too, in my speed or whatever, to do something. And what you end up doing is recording your stupid video like 400 times because you keep leaving something out or you put them in the wrong order or something like that. So even though it seems sort of, it can seem like extra work, it's actually, I think, saves you in the end and will save students. And then two big things. One we sort of touched on is provide clear instructions for posting and sharing, and we'll talk about different ways that students can share the final product. So instructions about that are key because it's not something that's going to be readily obvious, as you probably would expect. The other thing I think is copyright material, whether you mind if students use it. If you do let them use it, how do they attribute it, that kind of thing. So, and there's all kinds of, opinion is really divided over what is fair use in an educational context when students are creating their own things. And I go into some of that in this document, but bottom line is make sure they know what you think it is, right, before they get started, because otherwise they'll have some other ideas.
And if part of your sharing is to make it publicly available, then you really do need to be mindful of copyright.
Right.
Because if a student has invested him or herself into a big project and gets a takedown notice, because copyright has been violated, in essence, you've done them a disservice.
So I think, are there any questions sort of about general design and things like that? And one thing we can do, because there's enough of you that we can kind of break up after we give you sort of an overview of what's out there and talk about specific projects with you guys. The other things that we wanted to kind of show you were sort of software, hardware resources available here, and then also the sharing, places to post. And we have a page on that talks about like the file size limits for different things and stuff like that. Because that, I think, seems to be the most techie, tricky part. And then I think from a pedagogical sort of best practices standpoint, it kind of comes down to what is it you're trying to do, and let's think through the sorts of possible pitfalls and things like that. Does that make sense? Are there any sort of global questions before we move forward? No?
How long are Esther and Elizabeth?
They are full-time permanent.
Cool.
Yes, for a year. All right, for a year. Yeah. So you can, yes, call on them.
Great.
Oh, another thing that I told these guys to not remind me if I forgot, which is not only do we have these lovely young ladies to help us out. But we also have the Mellon Creating a Liberal Arts Curriculum for a Digital Age grant that we received, has money for folks to apply for course development funds. So if you know that you want to do a project like this, but revamping your course is going to be really, a big thing, we can provide stipends, we can help you hire a student assistant to do this. If you need some sort of software, we can purchase it, that kind of stuff. So as you think about these kinds of projects, if they're substantial and you feel like you need support to do them, we're happy to provide that. And we have funding to do it. Our funding is kind of limited to, the Mellon thing was mostly for humanities and social sciences, but we've been finding other pots for science faculty. Don't let that deter you, science fee folks. Okay. Hardware and software. You guys want to talk about hardware?
Chris can jump in here too. Let me just show you the page, which is the one that we looked at earlier, that lists everything. And I have a handout here too. And if you have any questions, all you really need to remember is to email library@bryn-mawr.edu. I see all those emails. If I'm not here, other librarians will see the emails, and we can answer the thing for you. So if you're doing assignments, a lot of times the students will use maybe their own phone, which maybe can shoot video, shoot pictures, record audio, but not everybody has a smartphone, and a lot of times maybe the quality of the file that they're recording wouldn't be what you want. So we do have a pool of hardware at the library, which you can borrow, your students can borrow, anyone can borrow. It's all checks out from the circulation desk downstairs, and Bryn-Mawr students, faculty, and staff. I think we're in the process of, if you have Haverford students right now, we were asking them to go to Haverford. They have their own equipment pool there, Swarthmore as well. I think eventually they will be able to check out here, but for right now, at the beginning of the semester, they'll still need to draw upon Haverford's pool. If that's a problem, again, just email library and tell me who the student is, and I can go around the system to get them equipment. So it's never like a big deal. We'd say first come, first served basis whenever the circulation desk is open. So you can just walk up and request a piece of equipment that's on this page. If you know ahead of time you're going to be doing this assignment, it would be great if you could email us and let us know, because sometimes we know that a big assignment is happening during 1 week, and maybe everyone's coming in and checking out the video cameras, and we'll know about that. So we can help you kind of plan for any, access problems with that kind of stuff. Also, if you want to check out a pool of equipment, like just bring it to class so everyone can have a camera that day during class, just again email library and I will pull what equipment we have for you, and then I'll check it out to you and you can take it to class and use it for a couple class periods or whatever. So there's all kinds of flexibility, but basically kind of the self-serve part is just first come, first serve. Come to the library serve desk and ask for the equipment. The basic loan period is 4 days with no renewals, and we remind students that we have to charge like an overdue fee, or else people just tend to space it off. So it's pretty steep, and that helps us get the equipment back, because otherwise people would just tend to hang on to it. What else do I want to say about this? If students need an extension over 4 days because your assignment is going to run a little bit longer, again, they can just email library and I'll work behind the scenes to get them longer loan periods. So what kind of stuff do we have? It's all very basic consumer level stuff. We don't really have any high-end video cameras or very high-end SLR cameras. We've experimented with that before, and it was kind of a disaster because people tend to drop equipment and not take very good care of it. So this kind of equipment that we're loaning is perfectly fine, I think, for probably like 98% of the kinds of assignments you would be giving them. It's just not like real high-end Hollywood level movie equipment. If you want that, then this is probably not the place to come. So we have a lot of audio recording equipment. These Zooms are very nice. Records digital audio. You can just easily upload the file to a computer. They're nice because you can put them on a table and it's 360 recording, so they could do it that way.
And it records directly into an MP3 format, so you don't have to do any conversions if you want to, say, post it on your Moodle page.
Yeah, we have a lot of these, and these are nice. These are what they actually use on campus to record events, audio and events. So those are very nice. We have other audio recording devices too, just little personal ones for people doing interviews and things like that. Also microphones, if you want them to do podcasts or things like that. We have these, it's rather fun looking, impressive looking one, but then also just little clip-on microphones too. Other things, we still have an old school audio cassette recorder if you want to go back in time. Camcorders, we pretty much have just point and shoot. We have a lot of these ZI-8s, which is kind of just like a smartphone kind of video recorder without the phone. It's the nice thing about it is it's really rugged and it's really simple. You just push the red button and they point and shoot. And there's a USB built right into the phone that they can just then use to upload into the computer. It's pretty foolproof. So we have a number of those.
And they have actually good resolution. They actually have a higher resolution than the Samsung camcorder, which is second on the list.
Yeah, they're
Although
actually...
people think because that's a little bigger in terms of its profile, that would be the superior recording.
All right. They're actually fine for almost any kind of video assignment you would do. We just have...
The one thing they don't have is much of a zoom.
Yeah.
So if you're really focusing on form, where how something looks is a part of your assignment, where you want students to be able to alter the focus or perhaps have some kind of zoom or moving image captured there, the ZI-8s are probably not your best choice. But for a basic video capture, it probably really is, just for the simplicity, the ruggedness, and honestly, the quantity that we have. This way, every student in your class, so long as it's not a huge lecture class, can have the same kind of equipment. And in that way, you even the playing field for them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What about the tripod? Both of them could?
Yeah, both can go on a tripod, and we have those as well. We have just basic tripods, and then we have a more heavy-duty model, which is a lot heavier to lug, but it's also sturdier for a heavier camera. If they have some equipment they need a tripod for.
Honestly, all these cameras, though, are light enough that there's no reason to go for our very heavy-duty professional grade.
And we have mini tripods as well, if you just want to do a desktop shoot or something like that. So there are those. Just digital cameras for still photos, but all of these digital cameras also can do video, and actually the video is very good in the still cameras as well. So if they're going to be doing something with both, maybe they wouldn't really need the video camera. They could just shoot the video from the still camera. Wouldn't you say that was the case, Chris?
Yes.
And we have a variety, basically because of different features that they have, zooms and things like that. Those are popular because a lot of students don't have a camera anymore beyond a phone camera or something like that. So we tend to get a lot of requests for those.
And we do, all of these do have internal memory. So we tend to have 8 gig memory cards in all of these devices, which is enough for students to shoot up to a couple of hours of events. So that shouldn't be an issue. Again, it's what they do with their final project, where size is going to be a consideration, but we'll talk more about that.
Right. Also, if you're doing an assignment, and if it's a simple assignment, they're probably going to know how to operate a simple camcorder or camera. But if you feel like the class is kind of a mixed bag, and maybe some of them would be tentative about borrowing the equipment or using the equipment, you can always, again, email, and I'd be happy to come in and just do like a 5-minute demo to kind of take the nervous factor off.
And I have to say, one thing, it might be in the big document, but actually should probably be on our list of things to think about. It's a good idea to suggest to your students that they come and get the equipment and play around with it before they actually go and do the recording, particularly if they're like interviewing or something like that. Because the most simple device there, the little Zoom thingies, I couldn't figure out how to turn it on.
Right.
Okay? And I'm really good at this sort of thing. But I think because it was so obvious, I just kind of overlooked it. So, you know, also to make sure that it's charged. I mean, we do have people checking to see that these are charged and things like that, but batteries fail and stuff like that. So just, you know, don't expect to walk away from the search desk and use it immediately. You might want to give yourself some time.
Right.
And in terms of project planning and best practices, a little social engineering on your part is not a bad idea. So usually your projects are going to involve groups of students. Ask them up front who has experience, you know, depending on whether you're doing a podcast, which is audio recording or video recording, asking who's done it before and maybe kind of earmarking those people as leaders of groups.
Or spreading them about.
Really
Yes.
help you because, you know, you have to be keep in mind that you're going to be on the front lines. When students have questions, they're going to be coming to you. So having somebody a little more experienced in each of your working groups is going to reduce the amount that you're going to have to play interference for students. So keep that in mind as well.
Groups are also a great idea because if they do need to borrow equipment, if they're working in a group, maybe they only need one camera and not everybody needs one. Also, when they go to the lab, which of course we'll talk about in a minute, there are limited amounts of stations in the library. If they need to use that kind of software, they may want to work in a group. And they may want to work in a group anyway, doing that kind of work. Just one more thing I'll show you. There's just kind of so you can get a idea of how many we have of everything. There's a link here to what we have and what's available. Right now, no one's on campus, so almost everything's available except for this one. So these are the amounts we have of things. So if you're interested in saying Zooms, right now we have 9 of those audio players, tripods. If you think you need more of something, again, just email, but email way ahead of time so we could maybe arrange to maybe buy more for particular projects.
And we are expanding the loan pool all the time.
Yeah.
Eileen and I bought, several different items this summer to add to it. But we are open to it. We simply need to have you let us know what kind of usage we can anticipate.
Right, exactly. Chris, do you want to talk about the lab?
Sure. In the same way that, and actually I'm even going to go back to the equipment, because basically those same categories of recording equipment have analogous software. And so in terms of the software, for the audio equipment, we have 2 basic programs on campus. Every PC on campus that has what's called our public image, so basically the standard software package, has a program called Audacity. Audacity is also a free download from the internet. So if you don't, if you want it on your home computer, if your students want it on their personal computers, it is a very robust, time-tested, very safe free download from the internet. So I would recommend that to you. It works on both platforms, Mac and PC. On our Macs on campus, we also have GarageBand, which is part of the iLife suite. So for Mac users, if students own their own Mac, they will have GarageBand already. So they're very similar programs. They're both capable of producing the same kinds of files. You can both use them for recording if you have any kind of microphone on your desktop or laptop. You can also use them for editing any kind of sound file. So there are lots of instructions available. Google, quite frankly, is your friend if you run into any issues. We also currently have Atomic Learning on campus, which is a repository of video tutorials. We are getting Lindo, which is quite frankly a much better repository of technology tutorials. So that's in the works and it's coming, but we have something in place right now, and we'll have something even better, within hopefully, what is it now, Arlene, a couple months?
Couple months.
Yeah. So within a couple of months, we'll have an even better resource, and we'll be touting that when it's ready to roll out. But we have these tutorials available right now. So if you simply go to atomiclearning.brynmawr.edu, you can find a whole suite of tutorials that will help you use either GarageBand or Audacity for audio editing and production.
Your students also have access to them. So anybody with a brynmawr.edu.
Yeah.
And one of the things on that page that we showed you, just to chime in here, on our academic technology page, the main page, we have the login for Bryn Mawr students. You can just direct them here, or you can copy that link and put it in your syllabus or on your Moodle page or something and just say, go to this, find the docs, find the tutorials. We also have what Swarthmore is using and what Haverford is using. So if you have Swarthmore and Haverford students, they won't be able to access our atomic learning, but Haverford and Swarthmore have equivalent stuff.
They basically already have what we will have in a couple of months, a product called Linda.
Right.
So actually, they're in better shape than the Bryn Mawr students are for about 8
3
weeks.
months.
Yeah. So I've told you about the two primary audio production programs. So that's if you're doing any kind of podcasting or interview recording that you want to upload digitally somehow. For still images, our go-to is Photoshop. One of the changes that we had last spring is that Bryn Mawr has now subscribed to Adobe Creative Cloud, and we have over 400 campus licenses for it. So many public computers have the whole Adobe suite, which includes Photoshop on it, as well as for graphic design purposes, InDesign and Illustrator. If you need to have any of these programs on your office computer, you can make arrangements by contacting the help desk for that. Excuse me. And of course, we also have these programs in the Media Lab, and we will have them in the Visual Resources Center in Carpenter Library as well, which is being expanded this semester. So hopefully, by the end of the semester, we will be able to tell you about a shiny, new, fancy facility on campus that will have even more different options for both group and individual media production work. So that's also in the works. It's, once again, not quite ready for prime time yet, but it's coming. So Photoshop for image editing. And also the Adobe Creative Cloud has the software package that we are recommending for any kind of video project now. In the past, all of our multimedia stations were Apple computers. And so we tended to point to either the iLife suite, which included iMovies, and then we had another program called Final Cut and Final Cut Pro. So those were our primary video editing softwares. Of course, on the PCs, we also had Windows Movie Maker as kind of a standard. But in terms of real video production, we pointed people to the Mac. We are actually, a campus decision has been made to move away from Macs for multimedia production. So we're in a process of transitioning to PCs. So the nice thing about the Adobe Creative Cloud is that it is dual platform. We have it both for the PCs and for the Macs. And so in addition to the Macs, which will still have the iMovie and Final Cut 10 version of video software, we also have, as part of the Adobe Creative Cloud, Adobe Premiere. And that really is going to be, because we have so many licenses, we can make it available in any kind of computer classroom if there's some kind of teaching need that requires that. That is what we are promoting as a good go-to for you. It's not to say if one of your students has her own Mac, that using iMovies isn't a good choice, especially if she already knows how to use that software. But the video software that we're going to have in very good numbers and readily accessible for students with a variety of needs for it is Adobe Premiere. So I'm kind of planting that seed now because we do want to encourage its use on campus.
Although I will say, iMovie, Windows Movie Maker, the learning curve is a lot less steep than Adobe Photoshop. So if you have students who are, Adobe Premiere. If you have students who are thinking about going on to do video editing or something and really want to learn the chops or whatever, that might be something. If you really have a very small project and you don't want students to spend a crazy amount of time with the actual video editing and stuff like that, iMovie and Windows Movie Maker can do a lot of very basic things, and you might want to just steer them to that. And they can use it once they've left the college too, because they're both free. So it's kind of a what would you call it, trade-off. One thing we didn't talk about, and I'll jump in real quick. And again, this is up on our website, but there are actually also things that you can use to record on a tablet. So if your students have iPads and want to do their recording with that, they have built-in cameras, right? Apple has an iMovie app that can communicate with the Apple iMovie product, so if they can do both. And then Explain Everything is really useful for all kinds of recording, making screencasts on an iPad. So there are, and again, these are up on our website, there are some options for just using an iPad to do some kind of project like this.
And,
it is possible.
In the same vein, especially if it's a first or second foray into this kind of media assignment in your class, less can be more. We've already talked about less in terms of the duration of the project, but honestly, if you yourself aren't familiar with video production, there are lots of very creative assignments you can give your students that might have a slightly lower threshold in terms of the learning curve. So honestly, designing something creative with PowerPoint, for instance, where students can record voiceovers, they can embed little video clips, they can have series of timed still images. There's a lot you can do with that. So if you're a little tentative, at least initially, about a full-blown, big video project, there really are very good, very creative alternatives. Also, if you want kind of your transitional assignment, there's a lot you can do even with the Office suite in terms of some of their templates. Give your students something like a brochure project or some other project that's going to allow them to be a little creative, but use software that you can feel more comfortable about assigning them because they probably will have used it at least in some context or other. So that's my little plug for, we have lots of video, we have lots of audio and photography options for your students, but some of the tried and true software that they use can also be used very creatively in your courses, so you might give that a consideration as well.
And just real quick, we've been talking mostly about video projects. If you want your students to do some sort of web project, like a web exhibit, Omeka.net is what we sort of steer people to for exhibits. It was created for libraries, archives, that sort of thing. So it has the possibility of sort of creating a collection, and your students can do this together or they can do it separately, of things that have metadata associated with them, and then you use those things to create a narrative. So if the metadata is important to you, that's maybe a good option. Another thing, though, that students can use just to make a sort of web project or exhibit is simply WordPress. And Bryn Mawr has a WordPress instance. Students can set up their own WordPress here at blogs@brynmawr.edu. You log in with your computer, your username and password, and then you can create your own page. And again, this is something that if you need help with, if you want us to come and give a quick tutorial in the class for students, we can do that about how to do a page. WordPress is set up to make it easier for someone to control both the look and feel and also sort of the text on the page as well. And it can support, media clips, photographs, and things like that. So it's a pretty good option. The other nice thing about WordPress is, again, Haverford and Swarthmore are using it, and our systems are connected. So if you have students that if you have classes that have both Haverford and Swarthmore students, they can work together on a project. Okay? And there are other types of things out there, so if these things don't seem like something you want to use, I'm happy to talk through different options for things. But these are two that a lot of faculty, I think, on campus have used because they seem to work pretty well for these sorts of projects. So that was a bit of software, hardware. Do you want to talk about Media Lab hours or?
Sure. If your students need help with an assignment, we have students who staff the Media Lab downstairs from 3 to 6, from Sundays through Friday. So basically every day but Saturday afternoon. So they can go to the once classes begin, because the students aren't back yet, but once classes begin, students can get help from student assistants in the Media Lab.
And the Media Lab's located on the A level of the library. If you've never been down there, right across from the Lusty Cup Cafe.
And as I mentioned, we are it used to be an all Mac computer room. We are transitioning, so it's now half Mac, half PC. So we have 4 brand spanking new Macs that have just been installed, and any minute now. Today
We'll be working.
Although we heard the same thing yesterday, so we're caught in our own little Beckett play now. We should have the new PCs. And these are both 27-inch high-powered media computers. So these are a cut above kind of the standard computers that we have in this room, for instance.
Exactly. So I showed you guys this page, which is our media web projects under blended learning. Everything we've told you about video, including equipment, advanced editing. So there's the page on the library website that you can go to that talks about all this, and students can find it that way. There are also these pages under audio, video, and images. This site sort of targets faculty, so it's kind of set up as if you were going to be doing this, like you're going to be recording your own videos, but anything that we talk about in terms of hardware, software, all of that is available to students as well as faculty. So, and one of the pages here is publishing and sharing video. So this is another tricky sort of, how do I make these things available? How do my students make these available? We have some examples. Moodle is good for short video. Okay, so you can actually, audio clips are generally small enough that you can go up. The limits to Moodle are
128 megabytes.
yes, so we have here the size limits. There's a way to, if you add a Campus Pack podcast activity, which I can show you guys how to do, you can add actually something that's a little bit larger. And the podcast activity is nice because the students can upload the files. You can set up the podcast so that it's a shared one. Okay, and this is just a type of activity that you add in Moodle that allows your students to post the things. So again, if it's going to be anything longer or bigger, then you want to look at something, some other place to put things. I tend to post a lot of things on YouTube. YouTube videos don't have to be public. You can actually post them and as unlisted, which means that unless I give you the link, you can't get to the video. Okay, and so you just put those links then in your Moodle class, for example, and basically only people who have access to that Moodle page would be able to see the videos, in essence. You can also, when you first start out on YouTube, you're limited to, I think, 15 minutes of video or 10 minutes of video in length. You can have your account verified and upload anything, like unlimited length videos and unlimited amounts of video. So far, all of this is free. I was telling these guys, I was interviewed the other day about blended learning and all this stuff, you know, and they were saying, what keeps you up at night? And I said, well, one thing is that someday YouTube is not going to be free, and all of the stuff that I put up there might go away. But for now, this is free. This is something that the students could do and give you the unlisted link, and you could post it in the Moodle site. So that's possibly an option for videos that students make. The one thing to be careful about is YouTube has automated algorithms that essentially look for copyrighted content. So if you're using particularly video clips or audio clips, even if your use is fair use, if it recognizes it as a snippet from something that is copyrighted, it will either take it down or require you to take it down. This has been devastating for the computer game industry, which I used to work in, because they, of course, do playthroughs of things, and they put it up, and the computer game companies want them to put it up because this is advertisement, and it's been interesting. So that's the one caution: is if your students are doing something that does have copyrighted content in it, that might not be a good option, and then you probably want to talk to us. But if you keep it short, you can do it through Moodle. It's just you'll need to either have your students give you the files and you upload them, or you can create the podcast activity and they can do it themselves.
If a student has a very large video file, there are also ways to compress it and make it smaller so it can be uploaded into Moodle. Once again, if that becomes an issue, if they contact the help desk, we can refer them to somebody to